Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Captain's Lounge. I am your captain, Captain Diesel, and today is a very, very special installment of the show. I have with me the current writer and genius of the storm run that started in 2024 that is still currently ongoing, Mr. Murewa Adoyele. And I think I pronounced it right this time, right? Hey, there we
Yeah.
go.
Nailed it. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh man, how you doing, man? Everything going okay with you? How's life?
Yeah, doing good. Yeah, doing good. Everything is cool. Weather is nice. Everything is yeah,
Yes, sir.
and the scripts are coming in nicely, so it's very exciting.
Hey man, you're doing amazing work. For people that are not aware of the storm run, I feel like if you're watching this live, I have given a lot of information in regards to how much I love this run, and at least in my opinion, how this is the quintessential run for Storm, in my personal opinion. And for people watching, we'll only be discussing from issues 1 up until issue number 7, which recently came out, so you don't have to worry about any, like, future spoilers. Plus, I don't think Moewa can even give any spoilers for anything past 7. If I can pry something out of you, maybe, but I don't wanna get you in any trouble, giving out any information about that. But first up to discuss this, could you kinda give me some background on how you got the opportunity to work on such a coveted, infamous character like Storm in general?
Yeah. Uh, okay, so I think getting to work on Storm. Um, I'm not even sure you get to do something like this, but I think it helps that there was an overall like relaunch of the X titles.
Mhm.
So and Tom Brevoort, who has the knack for like taking risks on characters, taking risks on new creators and stuff. So him going the direction that we've not seen in X-Men comics before, going the route of let's see more solo titles. And I worked with him before on I Am Iron Man. So he reached out again to say, okay, do you would you like to work on Storm? And I was really, really scared at the time. And even though there was basically no job on me, I was already approaching like being broke. I was still having a couple of money coming from an indie project, but there was nothing in sight. And I was still like, I think I'm going to say no, despite the brokenness, despite everything. It's like I think I'm going to say no because it's just too scary. It's just too scary. You don't want to be the guy that because I know how rare an opportunity it is for Storm to have a solo title. She's been around since she's been around for 50 years now,
Mhm.
and she's had like a few origin stories, but you can't really call them solos. She had a 4 issue series in the 90s, just four, and she had she had an ongoing series in 2015 that only
Mhm.
lasted for like 11 issues. So it's a very rare thing for her to get a solo ongoing title, and you don't want to be the creator that messed it up. And I think there's always like an higher expectation and higher demand if you're also like a creator of color. So it's like,
Mm.
oh yeah, we understand if it's a white writer that messed up Storm, but you should know better, and so many things. So yeah, and so yeah, that was most of the pressure. But so that was why I was so happy when the first issue came out because I was so scared. I'd edited it so often that I wasn't even sure if it was good or bad anymore. You know that thing when you've edited something for so long, you're not
Mhm.
even sure if it's good, if it's bad, if it's anything. So when issue one, when I think when it was going to print, I asked the editor, "Is this issue really good? I think it's really bad." And they're like, "Yeah, it's cool, it's good, it's good, it's good." So when the issue one came out and people really loved it, I was like, "Oh," there was just this sigh of relief, and it's been nice seeing how everybody has been liking it so far. But basically, short answer is keep doing the comics you like, and at some point maybe you get the call to do something you love.
Right. Before I get into details about the book, I'm curious because you mentioned a little bit of the nervousness you had when you were given the opportunity to work on it. What were some things that you were very determined to make sure you did in this story or in this run, before you started it? Were there any story beats you wanted to have? Anything in particular you wanted this storm to look like or do or sound like in your head?
Oh, yeah, there were multiple things I wanted for this storm run, both like story things and non-story things. Um, there are peculiarities to working on a black character and a female character that I wanted to see how I could either fix it or work around it or something. You know, um, we read a lot of comics, like Wolverine comics, like Thor comics, and you're like, man, this character is really badass. Look at all these cool
Mm,
things he's doing. Um, is going to all these wonderful locations and doing incredible things. And I found out that sometimes when we have female protagonists, I understand the need to like d- go deep with the emotions and things like that. So a lot of stories usually focus more on like almost like slice of life kind of thing.
mhm,
And I was like, it's even though they are very interesting stories, they are very, very good stories. I have a few examples of very, very wonderful stories like that. But it gives room to the criticism of, oh yeah, these female characters can't be exciting action heroes, because where have you proven that they can be? You know, I think Tobma Fale once said that, if a child is looking for an action figure, he wants a male action figure, a male character, that if you give a female action figure, the boy is going to be so disappointed. And so there's that subconscious feel, even if it's not conscious or anything. So the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted a storm run
mhm,
that you could say, okay, this is badass. You know, I wanted her to let's see, let's we're going to have all those emotions, all those little bit of slice of life moments, but let's see her, do things like, oh yeah, let's have her carry a cool sword, you know,
right.
let's have her go through some intense battles. Let's have some incredible displays of power. And also something is there's always this fear too on pushing female characters. You you don't want to seem like you're fridging a character. There was this trend that Gilson was able to rightfully point out to a lot of comic book creators that either intentionally or unintentionally, they were leaning towards putting a lot of female characters through unnecessary trauma just to motivate male characters.
Mm,
Like villains weren't stealing their best friends or this, it was always the girl, and doing terrible things to them, cutting them up and putting them in freezers, and so many terrible things. So, and when that was pointed out, so I think some people pulled back, but then pulled back too much. That it now became, if you see a female character in the comic, you're almost sure nothing will happen to that female character. You're almost sure like this person will not go through any harm. You're almost sure like nothing bad would happen. So, and that lack of threat can also make a story kind of boring because they're like, nothing's going to happen to her at the end of the story. But then, so I wanted to make sure that I took that out of play. Like in the recent Storm 7 now, you see her fight Storm God and she
mhm,
loses, to the level that she loses her hair, that she had to cut her hair off. How often do you see that kind of thing in modern comics where characters have this beautiful hair that they have to lose because they were in a fight, you
right.
know. And every now and then we see male characters lose something, lose an hand, lose the this, lose the that. But how often do you see some female characters do that? So I wanted to bring some of that excitement that people are scared to pull off in female characters and bring it there. So I wanted the cool factor. I wanted to increase the stakes. And I wanted to build a mythos around that. especially one that is not so reliant on the X-Men mythos. If I bring too much of the X-Men mythos there, then it's still not ours. It's like we all know Iron Man villains. Yeah, if they show up in Avengers, nice, but we know the Iron Man villains. But if it's only Avengers villains that show up in an Iron Man comic, it reduces Iron Man's worth to a certain level that, oh, without the Avengers, Iron Man will be nothing. So I needed to build our own supporting cast. I needed to build our own locations, no sharing of X Mansion, no sharing of the, Blackbird and all these things. Let's have our own location, our own place of, rest, our own supporting cast, our own villains, and let's have like these cosmic beings and things that are connected to her and her alone, so that once you see some visuals, they're like, oh yeah, this is a Storm book. When you start hearing Asgard, Jotunheim, and all this stuff, you're like, oh yeah, this is Storm stuff. This is a Thor stuff.
Right.
And so for Storm, I want you to be able to say, oh, the Sanctuary. I know that, oh yeah, Storm Sanctuary. When you start saying, oh, Eternity, Oblivion, you're like, oh yeah, this is, so different things like that. So that's something I wanted. And I think having that would help the series run even after I've left. That was also a very strong goal I wanted. Um, Venom is a very successful franchise and everything, but I think after Donny Cates especially touched the character, it became almost expected that yeah, every year we're going to see there's still going to be a Venom book on the shelves. He's proven that Venom can really, sell as much as any of these solo titles. So that's what I'm so hoping for Storm. That even when I've left, like anytime there's an X-Men relaunch, you
Mhm.
have different X-Men titles. Sometimes you have X Factor, some have X Force, but you'd have X-Men titles, and you'd have Wolverine. Even though Wolverine's a solo title, you'd have Wolverine. I hope by the end of this run, it will be expected that, oh yeah, you would have an X-Men title, you would have a Wolverine title, and you'd have a Storm title. So that's also one of my goals. And to be able to do that, there's some things you need to put in place in the book itself. And so yeah, those were some of my goals going into the
Those are
series.
amazing. Those are amazing, and I applaud you for putting forth that effort to make sure that she stands by herself alone, separate from the X-Men. But one thing I want to ask you about, kind of getting into the beginning, I guess, of the details with the books, and one thing I noticed very prevalently from the first issue on is the attention to detail that you and the artist put into her aesthetic. As you kind of mentioned her looking like a badass and things of that nature. But in the first issue, where she's in her wardrobe, for lack of a better term, and you're seeing
Yeah.
all the vast different styles and outfits she's had over the years from the 90s up
And she
until
has like
now.
4 different costumes just in that
Yeah.
issue.
How in and that's even a further thing with her, like, fashion is definitely a big thing, for her throughout this. Even outside of her battle attire that you see her in with the X-Men, she usually is wearing some kind of elegant dress, or even in her pajamas. Her pajamas are some form of, like, elegant African garb. So how much attention and timing did you guys put into the design of everything that she wore in this series up until this point?
um I think when I was trying to also break down, what makes Storm Storm, and I was doing research both in the Krakoan era and Claremont era and different eras of Storm. And something I noticed particularly in the Claremont era, which I wasn't seeing much of in a lot of other eras, was you know she just dresses nice and wears beautiful head wraps and so many things. Oh yeah, they're going to the opera, and she dresses in these nice clothes, and I'm like, I want to bring that back. I want to bring fashionista Storm back. I think it's a way that she expresses herself. So I also noticed that in the Krakoan era, people liked air texture. So it's something I also noted. So there were different things we kind of took notes of that I wanted to implement, and which is a story. Is a story I've told very often of when I was watching Daria, this show on MTV by the time, which I had like on my device, and I was sharing it with my girlfriend at the time to like watch, and she was binging it and she was loving it, she was loving it, and suddenly she just stopped watching. I was like, "Why did you stop?" And then she was like, "It's because they keep wearing the same clothes every single day that she got
Mm,
tired of it." And since then, it's something I've always, paid notice to. Like, yeah, why can't they actually just change their clothes? And so it feels odd to me now anytime I read a comic and the characters are wearing the same clothes, like for issues and issues and issues and issues. So that's also something I wanted to work on. There was also the Moon Knight by Warren Ellis, where there's something I loved about that. That in every issue, you weren't sure the Moon Knight you would get. Either you would get Mr. Knight, the one that wears a suit, or you
mm,
get Moon Knight, that is the one that is more superhero, or the bone armor, where the one he uses to fight a ghost, and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, cool. Let's. A lot of people have different preference for what Storm should wear. Some people love her in black, some people love her in white, And I also had some ideas of looks I wanted to introduce to Storm that we've not seen before. People think of Storm and they're like, oh yeah, she should wear something light, she should wear something that she can fly easily in. And I'm
right.
like, what if she wears an armor and that she's like a tank, something that feels in opposition to her power set. So I like, I want to introduce some new looks. So why don't you do something like that? So every time you pick up an issue, you're not sure which, storm you're going to get when it comes to costume. And I
Mm,
think that brings some excitement to the books. That brings some newness to the books. Because, if you're trying to have a long run, I think you need little ways to bring those excitements. You open the book now, you're like, oh yeah, she's wearing these beautiful clothes, she has her hair in this very beautiful way, and and she's wearing this costume. Just those small difference, it helps the book not to feel monotonic. Bringing
mm,
freshness over and over again. Like in issue 7 now, she's cut her hair.
right.
So now even the hair, you're not even sure what hair you're going to get in the next issue. Is the hair going to be short? Is she going to grow it back? Is going to do something to it? What's happening? So even the hair, it's even there they're like, oh, this is supposed to be this stable thing. It's not. So every issue, you're like, okay, I wonder what this is going to be. And I think it brings some level of excitement. We'll try to put numerous details into it. Um, some are in the script, some Lucas goes wild with it and everything, but it's always very good. Like, oh yeah, here she's about to have a sparring session with Wolverine. Oh, her hair should be packed a little bit punkish, and stuff like this. Let her wear something more, almost like gym clothes, you know, have some couple of pictures and stuff like that. Oh yeah, she's going to the doctors, but she doesn't want people to see that she's losing her hair. You know, let's put her in head wrap and let her wear something elegant and like, oh, this is those clothes where people that are over here, for example, in Nigeria, people that work in banks, they
Mm.
always wear suits and shirts like almost every day and stuff like that. So anytime they have the chance to like wear something else, like maybe traditional wear for like maybe church or something, they now do like the whole extravagance thing because that's the only time they get to
Mhm.
wear it. So yeah, so I'm like, okay, so let's see Storm. This is probably as a superhero, you're always busy, you're always all this stuff. This is probably the one chance to get to like cool down and wear something extravagant, wear something nice. So yeah, that's our goals. Bring freshness, bring newness, and have fun with it. And I also think if you're a Storm fan,
Mhm.
I'm thinking of the demography. We might be seeing a lot of more female readers and things like that, and or people that just pay attention more to fashion and stuff and looks. And so we also wanted to have something that would appeal to the specific audience that might be interested in the comic book like Storm.
One question I have here from people watching it, and shout out my guy Greg. He's curious. I don't know if you have any of this information, but he'd like to know because he's a big Storm fan himself. He wants to know, will we be seeing any of your designs that you've used in the run up to this far, and maybe the Marvel Rivals game that's been taking the world by storm? No pun intended.
We're not sure. We're not sure. I think Marvel Rivals is almost like independent of the comics.
Mhm.
They just pick and choose what they want, but or what they find interesting to them. But I think one thing that might actually just help is just, as they continue to see people's excitement for the looks in this book, it's probably be inevitable.
All right. So the next thing I kind of wanted to shift to in regards to we mentioned the clothes and how that is such a big aspect of the story. Obviously, throughout all her history in comics, Storm has had a couple different romantic partners, from T'Challa to Wolverine to certain extents. More recently with Thor has been something there that was being teased in other runs. Um, how important was it for you to involve that aspect of Storm without these men that she's been tied to dominate her story? Because I did notice in, I think it was issue 2 or 3, where her and Wolverine had the training session and had their romantic bouts, but he didn't overstay his welcome. And that was something that I appreciated, is that Wolverine wasn't made this mainstay in her story. And it was just there to complement and elevate her story going forward. How much time and importance did you have in regards to that?
Uh, okay, so also because this is a solo series, um, I, at least in the beginning part of the this, I wanted to be sure we can tell as many exciting stories as we can, as and things are going to be very unshaky. Um, for example, even Storm right now, we've not seen her with many of our usual close friends. We've not seen her so much with a character like Rogue. We've not seen her so much with a character like Jean Grey. Like she's going through some emotional instability right now with the possession of eternity and so many things, and it's deliberate.
Mhm,
If she were with any of this, for example, Storm doesn't usually do the opening up. It's people that notice that, oh yeah, Storm, something is wrong with you. Do you want to talk about it? And then she does talk about it. She doesn't go out of her way to open up to people. She's reserved that way. That's one of the similarities she may have with Wolverine. And but we want to put her through the ringer. We want to see the difference between Storm alone and Storm on a team. We want to see Storm without a support system. And when there's romance there, there will be a support system. If there's a T'Challa there, if there's a Wolverine there, they'll be done to be like, do you want to talk about this eternity thing that's taking over your body?
mhm,
Do you want to talk about it, and stuff like that? But this is Storm alone that has to face all those challenges alone. And I think through that, we'll be able to see what she's really made of. I think we've not been able to see what Storm is really made of because she's had people around her. And I think that's why some people criticize her as, oh yeah, she's a Mary Sue. She just comes in when the battle
mm,
is toughest and then one shots everybody, pew, 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 pew. Because we've not really seen her emotional weaknesses because she has a support system. We've not seen her crash out because before she reach that level, Jean Grey or Rogue are there. Before she gets to that level, maybe T'Challa or Wolverine are there. So we want to see her alone and be able to fully understand what she's made of. And that's one of the reasons why we decided, maybe for now we should not lean into romantic partners yet. And then after we fully established who this character is, what she can do on her own, then we can now introduce, oh yeah, so what are the special complications that come with being in a relationship?
that's so interesting to me. And I guess I kind of have to ask for people that are fans of this character. She does sport some very beautiful Wakandan armor and like a Wakandan spear as she has there. Will T'Challa be making an appearance at all in this run, or is it planned for him to show up at some point in the future of the run?
He has a little cameo in issue 7. He has another one in issue 8. But a full appearance will be coming up hopefully in the story arc after Thunder War.
Okay. Okay. And kind of getting to Thunder War, obviously, for people that aren't aware, this story is really based around Storm getting into some very celestial, primordial beings, and her being involved in this. More specifically, Oblivion and Eternity are mainstays in this story up until this point. One thing
Yeah.
that you really put a lot of time and attention to was her ancestry and how she is related to Agamotto, the first Sorcerer Supreme, and how she has this really magical backstory that has been spoken about in previous issues of Storm. And I was really curious as to maybe any parameters Marvel editors or people or in the higher ups at the company maybe have had in regards to what previous material from her past you could use, what you couldn't use to be able to formulate your story.
So far I've not been given any like limitations on materials I can use or not use. Um, I've been I've been picking materials from Fantastic Four when she was a member with T'Challa. I've been picking stuff from the Black Panther comics. I've been picking stuff from the Storm solo series in the past. I've been picking stuff from X-Men books in general too. So it's I've been picking from everywhere to fit the story. So there's not been limitations there. The only limitation I would say I was given, which I've actually made the story much richer, is Storm stays on Earth.
Hmm.
That yeah, you might be interested in telling this cosmic story and things like that, but Storm stays on Earth. So now I have to find interesting ways to tell a cosmic story while Storm remains on Earth, which makes it very, very interesting.
Hmm.
You know, when you expect, cosmic things or you expect to be in the cosmos. So things don't feel as surprising or as contrasting because you're already in space. So space stuff happens. Big deal. So what makes it really cool is, the fact that you're on Earth. Like there's this thing that I'm planning to write where a cosmic entity shows up by ripping the sky open, like a piece of cloth and stepping down and questioning Storm herself, like, where is this person, And it just feels wild and crazy, when stuff like that happen. Because you don't see stuff like that happen because yeah, you have to go to space to see all this cosmic stuff. But when they come to Earth,
Hmm.
so it's been fun that okay, if I can't take Storm to the cosmos, I'll bring the cosmos to Storm. And that's that little gimmick in quotes has been doing wonders for the story. So it feels like all those Lovecraftian stories where someone is living their mundane life, but then you see the effects of Cthulhu, on the life around that person, So just that juxtaposition has been very, very wonderful for the story.
In that regard, 'cause you mentioned the gods in this. Obviously, Marvel Comics has a bunch of gods from Mephisto to Dormammu, etc., and a lot of those hell deities. What made you choose Oblivion and Eternity specifically versus any of the other vast pantheons you could have chosen for Storm to have this, I guess, battle slash interaction with?
Um, there are different reasons why writers do stuff, and there are some that writers find difficult to admit to.
Mm.
Number one is Oblivion just has a sick name, Oblivion. So and so there's always the cool factor, you want
Mm.
the cool factor. He has a very cool design, his color schemes are cool, his name is cool. Um, and despite that, not many people are able to do anything much with him. You know, they just touch up on the character and then leave, touch up on the character and then leave. And you writers want characters like that. You want a character that is not like totally like dead that you don't nobody cares.
Mhm.
There's interest there, but people have not done too much. So you want to hopefully be able to do something so interesting, something so fun. You put a permanent stamp on that character. And but that said, I noticed that Storm had a connection to eternity, um, which has gone way back to, when she was a member of the Fantastic Four, where Eternity had to be housed in her temporarily to save the universe. Um, Even in her description in Giant Size X-Men 1, they were mentioning things like, oh, as I blue and as old as time, and so many things that felt like she has this deep connection to the universe. So I knew I wanted her to be linked to Eternity. That made a lot of sense for her continuity. And Eternal Storm just sounds cool. Sounds badass. And so for Eternity, what entity would be the opposite? So you'd either go with death, or oblivion. Those are the two entities that are in opposition to eternity and infinity.
Mm.
So death, everybody has done death. Like, do you want to compete with, Infinity Gauntlets, where Thanos and death and all those stuff? You're like, yeah. So you go with Oblivion, and so that's why I decided to go with Oblivion on that for that. So and it's really fun. Especially the cool designs that Jonathan Hickman did in Gods, where he's like this Leviathan kind of creature. So it's very, really, really nice.
How much research did it take you to do on those two in particular? Because the Storm, there's like a expansive amount of X-Men to Black Panther, maybe Wolverine comics that she's been in, but I can't remember too many like specific stories where I could say, oh, that is the Oblivion or Eternity story where they were put on the main stage. I feel like these are characters who are instrumental in how the Marvel universe works, but they're usually kind of in the shadows in regards to how things work. Where did you kind of go to take
Yeah,
inspiration for them?
yeah. For Oblivion, there isn't much research to do, so which is also cool. You know, which is what made them interesting to work with. Like, yeah, so you don't have to do like hellish number of amount of research, and you can get to create your own continuity, almost like you're working with in a creator owned kind of thing where you get to create these characters and their backstory and their relationships and everything. So it's been really nice. And Eternity has way more appearances than Oblivion, but they've been all fairly consistent. And those old Quasar comics have been really, really instrumental and interesting. So they were reading them were like super inspirational to like how I defined the relationships amongst these cosmic entities. So I read a lot of other books and everything, but it was predominantly Quasar comics.
That's dope. To the art portion, because I want to kind of backtrack a little bit to more of the physical and the visual. Obviously, if people haven't seen the run, I have a issue 7 cover now, and you can see this is a beautiful piece of art. In regards to figuring out who you wanted to be the artist for this, was it something that you had the decision in for your run, or was it kind of like a Marvel thing of like, hey, we're gonna have you write this, but this is our guy to do this art? Did you have a lot of decision making in who was the artist for you for this?
Oh, that this
For
was all Tom Brevoort. In fact, I had written probably like 4 to 5 issues of the first of the series before I knew who the artist was going to be. So that was all Lucas, but I made sure that we talked on like what we wanted for the series.
mm,
I put those some documents together to be like, you know, I want this to have like this cinematic feel. A lot of landscape panels. Characters should feel grounded. And so many. Oh yeah, attention to fashion. So yeah, there was things we said, but didn't particularly have. I didn't get to choose um any of the art teams, but I'm grateful I have all of them because they've been phenomenal. Um, I might come up with some wacky idea for a cover,
mm.
and Mateos finds a way to just make it look cool. So yeah, it's really been fun working with them, and Alex Guimares, who's the colorist, is like the glue of the team. He's always very friendly, and his work just makes everything pop.
Are there any like for people that aren't aware, because I think myself, maybe a lot of fans who read comics, obviously don't understand 100% what it takes to make one and produce one at this level and quality, what would maybe be some difficulties people may not know in regards to a team like the one you have putting this book together, from the writing to the arting, the coloring, the lettering? Like, how do you make sure that you guys are all melded into one at some point to get this book out?
The challenges that come to like comics like this, it's always unique to every like theme. It's
Mm,
always unique to every theme, and you know, sometimes is trust. You know, does the artist trust the writer? You know, you might come up with a cool idea, and if the artist doesn't trust that decision, you know, there might be some issue there. Um, if sometimes there's also some level of humility that is needed in storytelling. So, for example, if the writer just wants to show off how good a writer is, like I'm the best there is, people need to know, you know, you see more leaning to on text and everything, so much text that is covering up the art, and you see narration saying things we already see, you know, almost like I need to show that I can do this, or maybe there's just lack of trust on the artist. So there's that, and sometimes the same thing happen with the artist. You know, let's say a scene is supposed to be like this calm, quiet scene that's supposed to be deeply emotional, and that's the purpose of that thing. But the artist might be like, I want people to know that I can really draw, you know. And then a thing that's supposed to be this sober thing, as cameras moving at, you know, different
mhm,
radical angles to show that, you know what, I can draw anything from any perspective, you know. And the characters are drinking coffee like they're in a battle scene, you know, like you know, and stuff like that. And before you know it, what's supposed to be a sober scene is just like, you know, I think what people do realize that a lot of comics that people think are like bad, once you've worked a lot in comics, sometimes it can be like, sometimes maybe an artist is blamed for something. I like, it's technically not the artist. You can almost guess that this was probably the artist, the writer overwriting or something, or sometimes even underwriting, you know. And in some situations, they're like, it's not the writer's fault. If you notice, a lot of the words, a lot of this thing was trying to set a mood, but the artist was going against that mood. That's why that thing didn't work. It wasn't the writer's fault. It was the artist that was trying to show off too much, you know. So there's a level of humility that is necessary for a team to work, where it's you write to service the art, the
mhm.
artist also draws to service the story, you know, and the colorist also does the same thing too. So it must be everything you do as a writer is to make sure the art and the coloring looks good. Everything the colorist should do should make sure that is to make the story and the art look good. And the artist should draw to make the colors and the story look good. So your job is literally to make the other person good.
Right.
So once one of the team members tries to do something to make themselves look good, it immediately stops working.
Mm. Have you
Sometimes it might not even be for the whole project. You might just see it in a couple of pages and be like, why does this feel weird? It's because one person did it for themselves rather than the other thing.
have you feel like you've had that experience, maybe a book you worked on in the past that you had to kind of like fix in the process?
Not really. I've been lucky that way. Um, some of my earlier projects have been with Dr. Akonde, who is my best friend. So, and we work together on everything. So, like, he doesn't want, like, what's the point of like making me look bad or something, and you know, vice versa and stuff like that,
Right.
which has been good. Even a lot of award nominations that we do get. When I get nominated for like, oh, best writer, he always gets nominated for best artist right beside me. So, which has always been good, which proves that if you do that thing well, you both get that boost, like look at Saga for a very, very long time, when Brakivan is getting nominated for, best writer, Fiona Staples is also getting that for best artist. So if it's done well, both people will get that recognition, but it's always it's scary. It's scary. So people tend to have that. So but once you just allow yourself to be like, it's for the story, it's for the art, it's for this, it just works. Just works.
I have a question here from somebody in the chat. I mean, Marcel Edwards. He's curious if you have the gift of drawing like an artist. Is that a talent you have, or are you just in the realm of writing?
Um, hmm. I used to a little, but then every single day my it gets worse, and I don't think right now a bullet to my head I can't draw to save my life. Um, I'll probably just be, you know what? Why are you trying to torture me? Just kill me. Don't ask me any nonsense question of draw to save your life. Just do it already. You know, but I do have a preference for visual language. So this is what I do to supplement that. Um, I always have so many images saved up, screenshots of beautiful shows I'm watching. I'm always on Pinterest 24/7. Some cool visual I see maybe on Instagram or something. I always have them saved up, always saved up, screenshots, everything saved up. And I use them as mood boards, when I describe things like, oh, you see the way this person was spitting fire in this particular this. I want Storm to do that here, this. I want this framing here and stuff like that. So, which you would see a lot in the Storm comic. You see a lot of panels where you're like, oh yeah, this is something I can put on my wall. This is something. So it's something you try to do. Like a lot of the panels are just like it's something you want to screenshot, something you want to make your wallpaper, something you want to make as a poster, to have
Hmm.
that strong visual language and everything. So I try to do that with my scripts, even though I can't draw, but I think I still understand some visual sense. I understand how to be visually striking, I would say.
In regards to the oh my gosh, I'm blanking. The story that's been taking place so far obviously has had a couple different crossovers. I think One World Under Doom, and I think the third issue is one where you kind of see Doom as the new Sorcerer Supreme. We're seeing, I think X Manhunt was issue 6 or 5, where Xavier came about.
So,
What are maybe some challenges, or is there any, in regards to writing your own narrative and your story you have set out in your mind, but also kind of interweaving it in maybe potential other stories that other writers are doing with their own brands they're kind of involved in? Like, do you have to go collaborate with them for that particular issue, or do they just kind of give you instructions of like, hey, do what you want, but it has to end this way?
um, I don't know what the future would be, but right now, I none of those times particularly felt like it derailed my story in any way. And it just felt like a cool thing to like add to the story. Like, okay, let me explain it this way. In issue 5, we're talking about one world under Doom.
Hmm.
But then we have this deep history with Storm and Doom, where she's always had this dinner with Doom. You know, she's had 2 dinners with Doom, and they had this very weird way of ending. And it's saying that, oh yeah, we would like you to have one, Doom featured in this issue and stuff like that. And like, oh yeah, this is a wonderful opportunity to like have this closure for Storm and Doom. It just presents good story opportunities. And then I remember that, yeah, the first time Storm went into this big, powerful mode where her hair turned into like clouds and her clothes turned white and gold, something similar to Eternal Storm, was when she had a dinner with Doom. I'm like,
Mm.
if Doom unlocks that power inside her, I want Doom to unlock Eternal Storm inside her. So it just felt perfect. It flowed with the story. It was like nice, And X Manhunt too. It's I wanted Storm to meet a lot of people from her past. She already met the Uncanny X-Men over at with Gail Simone in New Orleans. I wanted a story where she would get to interact with Cyclops' team and maybe not be as friendly as she had with Rogue's team. So I already had that plan. So X-Man not coming in is like, oh yeah, so there's going to be a clash there. So it just flowed. So I think sometimes people might be expecting that, oh, this thing is derailing your story,
Mhm.
but people just need to be patient. Like like I said in issue 1 of Storm, people are like, oh, cosmic stuff is not going to work. Like, Storm is better when it's grounded and everything. Bringing all this eternity thing is not going to work. And by the time you got to issue 4 and 5, is like, it works. Everything just connected and everything. So people thinking now, like in 6 and 7, the early issues, they're again saying things like, oh man, this event kind of derailed this story and stuff like that. And I remind them, like, you get to issue 10, you get to see how everything connects again, just like it did before for the previous arc. So um I don't know what the future is going to be. Maybe there's going to be one event that's going to be like, yeah, we're derailing your story, everything's going to be all messed up now. But so far, they've all been a blessing to the series. X Manhunt also helped us get like new readers on issue 6. People that weren't reading Storm before read it and like, oh, this is actually pretty good. We'll continue with issue 7. Like, these issues were the time where sales are supposed to drop for a lot of series. Our sales have been steady, and I think
Mhm.
maybe have even gone up. Which is issue 7 was, I think, number 7 in the top 10 of the week it came out. So it's also helped our sales to introduce new fresh blood into the series and everything. So yeah, I think it's been a blessing, story wise, sales wise, everything.
I don't know how far you've written in advance, but if I had to throw something out there recently, I did a video on my channel looking at the character by the name of Spike from the X-Men Evolution series, which was in that series pitched as him being Storm's nephew. So I don't think we've seen Spike in anything since that series, especially comic book wise. So if you want a character, to play around with that doesn't have the backstory, Spike's there. Just I'm gonna throw that out there. If you take it, leave it. If I see him pop up in a future issue, I'll know, like, hey, we'll have that understanding. Um,
I've been, I've been, I've been seeing a lot of people talk about Spike too and everything. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure yet. I'll see what's up. It's not every time that Marvel likes you bringing things from another media,
mhm,
especially depending on the agreements they have with the other media. So sometimes
it's a little
that might be why
difficult.
we've not even seen Spike. Yeah, because I think it was during when it was with Fox, so it
Hmm.
might be all, yeah. So it's sometimes not always clean, but we'll see.
Hey, okay, hey, just throwing it out there. But the next question I have though is we've seen for a long time the mascot of Marvel being Mr. Stanley himself. He's been in every cartoon Marvel's put out. You could think of movies and some iterations of the comic books. In stories that you write in general, maybe potentially in this story, how much of yourself do you try to put in here in regards to maybe your experiences, some of your beliefs, or hell, you just even you yourself somewhere snuck into the book? Do you try to put some of you in the books you write?
Um, Not too strongly, but to some extent, yes. Like for example, and sometimes not even to Storm, it might be to the antagonist even. Um, like Oblivion
Hmm.
being separated from his sister Death. Is inspired by my story itself with my sister. That we talk every day, but we've been able to see each other physically in like 10 years, because She's been in the UK. She's a UK citizen and everything now. And the time I tried to apply for a visa, I wasn't like working at Marvel yet.
Mm,
So they thought I was just cooking up a story about being a comic book creator because I was self-published and everything. So they're like, yeah, they don't believe my source of income. And they think if I move to the UK for a Comic Con, I was going for a Comic Con and to visit my sister, they believe I wouldn't come back. So because of that, they had to deny my visa. So it was annoying and stuff. And I've not tried it again recently, but so yeah, so stuff like that. So it's inspired by that of yeah, Oblivion's whole motivation is the fact that there's this whole rule and law and trials and everything separating him from his sister death.
mm,
And um I also think it's something that Storm will understand because she has been an immigrant in so many situations, when they moved to when her and her parents moved to Cairo,
mm,
and then she moved back to Kenya, and then she moved back to the US. Even though she's a US citizen, she moved back, with a Kenyan accent, with everything, almost as though she is an immigrant. Like a lot of people reading comics and even watching movies don't even know that she's American. So things like that. So yeah, so how would Storm deal with a villain like that where they have more in common than even our allies?
mm,
So things like that. So it's been there are elements of yeah myself, the African gods that brought in is because of my love for mythology. Getting to study what are the similarities between many of the thunder gods in various mythologies. Noticing the some similar traits. The way Shango's axe is basically almost like Mjolnir. Thor's
mm,
armor, um, the way a lot of the thunder gods have fought some form of giant snake or the other. Zeus fought Typhoon, Thor fought the Midgard serpent, Susanoo fought Yamato no Orochi, another giant snake. Um, Hadad, that's Baal, also fought a giant snake, I think called Lotan. So different like different thunder gods always seem to fight this giant snake. So it's just getting to know some of those similarities and see, what if I bring them into this story, what if I bring some of these African, mythos and so yes, there are personal stories, there are personal preferences, there are personal interests that make it into the story. Yes.
to speak on the Thunder Gods, because I know that was something that when we last spoke on Dr. Carrier Knights on her channel, you at that point issue 7 wasn't out yet. You were kind of letting us know to look out for issue 7 because that was an issue that you were really proud of and thought would shake things up a bit, which I agree. I think it did. Because I had never seen a story that involves so many different versions of the same god. Because in a lot of different stories, especially in comic books, where you see this thunder god and that thunder god, but seeing them all kind of in one place was so interesting. How much time and
Mm-hmm.
effort went into making sure that the depictions of each of these gods were not only respectable by the various cultures they're from, but just genuinely looked similar to their portrayal in their said mythologies? Or was that more of like an
I'm not
artist
sure
thing that kind of
because
focused on?
yeah, Luciano helped with that a lot, but I can't say per se because some of these characters are characters that you've loved even before writing Storm.
Mhm.
So does that count as research?
True.
Susano from
Yeah.
that you've seen in various animes and different stories like that. I see Shango like Shango and Shango portrayal since like I was a kid. You know, um, so yeah, there's Mamarangan has been in DC for like years. That's the old man that gives Shazam his powers.
Mhm.
It's Mamarangan. There's been different portrayals of him. So different things like that, that they've been there for years. So it's not new research per se, but I did try to do some new research. Um, what are some of the portrayals of these gods from the people that actually of the local culture. So, and yeah, but and also just try to make it cool because there's an element of accuracy, but sometimes if accuracy is done to a level where it doesn't look cool, I think nobody is pleased too. There are Shango portrayals that might be said to be more accurate, like maybe him having like all these cowries and stuff on this thing, but
Mhm.
do they look cool in comic book form? So at the end of the day, is have some red views, have some this, and if it looks cool, I think a Yoruba person seeing it to be like, oh damn, yeah, I like this Shango. So that's also that's also a that's also something to always note. While going for accuracy, also try to be cool because I think people can give you some leeway here and there if it looks cool, like at the end of the day.
I see. I'm gonna have two more questions here for you because thank you so much for your time. I don't want to hold you all night, or I'm not sure what the time
Yeah.
difference is in the States versus
Yeah,
where you are
sorry.
in
For
Europe.
example, yeah. Yeah, for example, Thor in the comics looks nothing like Thor from the mythos,
True.
but we're all cool with it because yeah, it looks cool. Like they even have the same color of hair. I think Thor in the mythology is supposed to have red hair. You know,
Hmm.
this Thor is blonde. And so different things
Doesn't
like
have the
that.
guts and all that. He's as much of a villain. 'Cause I feel like Thor in his
Yeah,
traditional mythology is seen as more of a villain than anything else.
yeah, he is. They love him. He's still seen as a hero, but he's way more in the gray area than this current Thor that's just super heroic and everything.
Right, right.
Yeah.
In regards to Storm, because obviously this is kind of a fun question for me. There's been and I think we may have asked you this last time we spoke, but there's been a lot of drama around the casting of Storm because we haven't seen Storm in live action since the Halle Berry portrayal in the early 2000s X-Men movies. Well, actually, I think there was the one
No,
Age of
we saw
Apocalypse movie.
in
Yeah.
Age of Apocalypse. Yeah.
Storm in general has, and you mentioned it, has so many different things that of her background that makes her who she is. If you could think of maybe an actress, or if you think there is one that you feel as though could portray your version of Storm and what you think embodies her, is there anyone out there you would think of, or does that actress even exist in your mind right now?
I'm so bad at casting.
Mm,
I might see someone today and be like, oh my god, that'll be perfect for Storm. And 2 minutes later, I've forgotten the person's name. I've forgotten everything. So I think my memory is too bad when it comes to like actresses and actors. So I think I'm the wrongest person to ask that question. But to be honest, I would always just prefer make it animated when you
mm.
know she can be as accurate as we want.
You have a voice actress you would think of, like Cree Summers, maybe, or is there anybody in there you would think of?
I'm still cool with the current X-Men 97 voice.
Hmm. Okay, I'm not mad at that. And I guess the last question I would have for you in regards to, because last time we spoke, you gave us the heads up, like, hey, issue 7 is the one that I'm really proud of that everybody should be looking out for. Is there another like marker? Because obviously every issue coming out is one people should look for and should go purchase. But is there like a staple one going forward now that you would like want fans to be excited for?
um it start getting crazy. In issue 8 we're going to see the one above all. um in in issue 9 there's going to be like this competition that comes to like a little conclusion where Margot is fighting, doing like a power shifter fighting competition, MMA kind of fight with characters like She-Hulk, Strong Guy, the Juggernaut,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. That's been cool. Um, but the I want everybody to read every issue, but the issues that have been really, really excited and I can't wait for people to check out is issues 10 to 12, and that's going to be the Thunder War arc. Everything Thunder War is going to be nuts. It's going to be crazy. Um, this is where Oblivion, gets involved. Eternity. I might have to spoil it. Infinity would also get involved because we've not seen Infinity in
Okay.
a while. We're going to see some of these thunder gods that we know might be bringing Zeus back, and so it's going to be nuts. It's going to be like a summer event, like Secret War, Civil War kind of thing, but all happening only in the Storm book for those three issues. So it's going to be really, really something extremely unique, kind of never done before kind of thing.
I'm excited, and y'all heard it here first, or maybe second. I'm not sure if you've given
Yeah.
this information on any other platform before, but
I think
thank you
it's
for doing
it's
it here.
first. It's first. Yeah, so we have Galactus, Silver Surfer, everything. It's all going to be crazy for those three issues. It's
That's
pure
amazing.
madness.
I'm so excited for that. Um, so before we get up out of here, could you tell people about any other projects you're working on right now, or any other books, or anything that you feel like you want to, promote while you're here before before I let you go?
Dotso and I, that's my best friend. I've been working together. We worked on an anthology called Carry On. It's going to be live, I think, this month. So keep your eyes open for that. And well, mostly keep reading the Storm comic, and keep telling your people about the comic. Let's keep supporting the book. I think it's doing a lot of numbers for a black-led book, a female-led book. So let's
Mhm.
keep that it can be done, and let's stay excited for Thunder War. It's something special.
I'm excited. Thank you so much. And again, I want to give you your flowers in regards to the work you're doing with this book. I've on my channel, I've covered a plethora of different Black comic book characters that I feel like didn't get their just due. Because people I feel like didn't support them in the way they should have when they were out. So while this book is out, I'm so happy that it is doing as well as it is doing. At least for me right now, as far as the main big names of comic publishers with Marvel, DC, maybe Image. Storm is probably at the top of that list, like hit it or neck and neck with the absolute universe that they have going on right now with DC Comics. So I want to thank you for the work you're doing on this story, and really, especially giving Storm, a character who doesn't get, I feel like, as much recognition as she deserves in her comic landscape, her due diligence. So I appreciate you on that standpoint.
Yeah, thank you very much for your kind words, and thank you for having me on the show.
No problem. And for anybody that is here for the first time, everyone, my name is Captain Diesel. This is Captain Diesel's Dojo. But what you are watching now was something I call the Captain's Lounge, where I try to bring in amazing guests like Murewa, and just have general conversations around topics that I feel like are really relevant and are need to be had, or maybe just sometimes just to have fun, genuine conversation. So if you guys want to see more of this, please like the video to make sure this gets around to more people that would like to see this stuff, and subscribe to the channel. But again, this has been Captain Diesel of Captain Diesel's Dojo / the Captain's Lounge, and this has been the amazing, talented Murewa Adoyele of Storm 2024, currently ongoing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.